What we tried to do with Edge of Desire was to speak about contemporary art without having to specify or without having to condition our selection criteria, if you want to call it that, on the grounds of whether the artist comes from an urban area or not, whether the artist speaks English and sits in conferences or not. So there is very much an argument for contemporaneity, which needs to be diversified. If we, on the one hand, if we are talking about can art history be global, we also need to speak in local context, in the Indian context, about can contemporaneity be national either. And it was based on questions such as this that I was fortunate to have a lot of time doing fieldwork for this exhibition, and I traveled very widely into all kinds of remote places. And I found
there have been several institutions that came to help you, like the folk art museums and research scholars. Could you just speak a bit about them?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
No, I mean to say that while you were sort of looking for the artist and doing a lot of research, there had been institutions, there had been sort of folk museums where you had been sort of getting in touch with in making them? But there had been several institutions that sort of advised you on making the exhibition? I faintly remember.
No, the exhibition had 7 venues. It traveled to 7 museums. It traveled to 7 museums in Australia, the USA, Mexico, and India.
Yeah.
Those museums hosted the exhibition.
No, I think I'm asking you who were the who were the other people who had been helping you in making it? I think Jyotindra Jain was one of the research scholars you had been getting in touch with.
Oh, certainly. I've learned a lot from Jyotindra Jain from the time that I was a student.
And also from some of the folk art museums which had been resources for you? No? Yes, in a way. Had there been?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
I did not have a museum of. I don't.
Okay.
I don't think that's. Maybe we are talking about some other thing.
No, then coming back to it, you had been looking for this artist and doing a lot of travelings, yes, to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
India,
I did
yes.
travel. Yes.
Even to the remotest places, like you said.
I traveled to some places.
Yes,
Yeah.
Please, I'm sorry about that. Please continue.
No, I finished. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we'll come back to Edge of Desire a little later. I'd just like to know what have been your thematic choices in your curatorial ventures, the other thematic choices from the beginning of your career, before we talk about place, time, play in specific.
Sure. Thematic choices are difficult to pin down when you're trying to do a sort of survey exhibition of one country in another place. You are trying to speak about certain historical conditions, certain historical frameworks that need to be put in place in order for that work to become legible. And as Gayatri has said earlier. For those of us who started working in the 1990s, it was fairly urgent to start thinking about the ways in which art practice responds to the seismic changes that started taking place in the Indian and international economy and in political terms. Whether those changes are to do with the rise of various kinds of fundamentalism, here and elsewhere, or whether those changes have to do with the insecurities and opportunities offered by globalization, whether those changes have to do with the aftermath of the nationalist project in large numbers of post-colonial countries where the dreams and the energies of the newly independent nation state a few decades later start getting tattered at the edges. Again, Gayatri has already spoken about this in relation to the Middle Age Spread exhibition. And so it became, for me, very important that rather than have a sort of an exposition that picks up on a theme and then makes other things work with that theme, it became important to go the other way, so as to base the work of the curator and the genesis of the exhibition in a study of historical conditions from low down going upwards rather than top down. Yeah.
Could you talk a bit about Place Time Play, its making, its concerns, and reception?
Yeah, Place Time Play has been was last year in Shanghai, and it's the first time that there's been a collaboration between Indian and Chinese artists and institutions and academics. So it was quite a wonderful thing to be part of. We, in many parts of Asia, are terribly well informed about what's happening around us, of course, in our own countries, and we always aspire to be terribly well informed about what's happening in Europe and in the USA. Very often we are fairly ignorant of what's happening in our neighboring countries. We don't know a lot of what's happening in Indonesia at the moment, for instance. And I think Suman will have more to say on this, yes, with her new project coming up. So it was the project Place Time Play, contemporary art from India and China, was the first time that a single curator had put up a group of artists from India and a group of artists from China who had worked alongside. We had the pleasure and the privilege of traveling together through both countries, all of the artists and the organizing team. And we had the pleasure of getting to know each other really well, and having extended dialogues, often with great interpreters in tow.
Yes.
And so the exhibition was born out of a great deal of mutual travel, learning, reading about each other's histories. And so that's why it's called Place, Time and Play. It's an invitation to engage with a place that belongs notionally to the other, to a time, to a historical, so to a geography, to a history that are at once both intimate and extremely foreign for artists from India and from China. And then to play with these things, to actually subject these apprehensions of temporality and location to a degree of irreverence sometimes as well. That is how that project was born.
Yes. Talking about the making of the exhibition, you also had been handling provisional spaces as well, because the show didn't really take place in a regular gallery kind of space. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. We did not work in a museum or in a gallery in Shanghai. We had three spaces. One was a church which was no longer used for worship. It's a heritage-listed old church building, but it's hollow. On Nansujolu, yeah. The second building was a group of a 5-story apartment for seminarians, for the priests who lived in that, who worked in that church next door. And the third building on Nanjing West Road was the atrium of a 22-story skyscraper which housed a bank. So we had God and money both on our side, and we were very, very fortunate in having an architect alongside, and we actually built into the atrium of this bank, which was all polished marble like that hotel lobby outside. We built a provisional structure within it, from aluminium, wood, and perspex, into which we could then show the exhibition. Whereas with the church and the seminary, both being heritage listed, we were not able to. We didn't need to actually build into them because the architecture was wonderful in its rawness, and we were able to use those spaces with great delight, actually.
Thank you, Chaitanya.